Hello, test. Hello, test, test. Hello, hello. Well, I had a few things I wanted to go into. One was I wanted to go through some scriptural things, some of the, as Doe called the records, if that's what they are, and surrounding the revealing. And I might as well go right into it. That's what I should have put up on the screen. I got distracted, and which is easy for me to do. There it is. And there it is. Well, I didn't necessarily need this, but I might as well. It's Luke 17. There's a lot in this. I could spend hours on this. I'm not saying everything I say is of value to anybody else, but the things that I feel like I can see there, and I know that's changeable. I can't get overconfident with my interpretation, unless I can bring. It always becomes something that to somebody else can be nebulous. The whole idea, though, is it doesn't matter if I'm right. It's matter if it is right. You see, because I'm just an instrument. That's all. That's all. Members of the next level want to be is an instrument for their older members. Because they don't have any fear of that, because they know how great it is, the way they are. And the kindness and the gentleness and the the determination and the discipline and their own self-discipline, because they were going through stuff the whole time. Doe, battled against T. Not battled, but I shouldn't say it that way. I should try to say it the way he talked about it. And I'll give you an example. I've given this example many times, but one time in 1973 or 4, I believe it would have been, but it could have been part of 5 as well. Might have been as late as March or April of 5, or who knows. Around actually probably before the meeting in Los Angeles, the first meeting that they did. Anyway, but where she sat down on the curb and put her head in her hands, is the way I understand it, and said, "I'm not taking another step." And that was like a shock for Doe. And the reason she did that was because she would they would talk about what they were going to do, where they were going to go, whatever it was, while they were traveling together after they left their world behind. And so Doe wanted to try things, and T went along with those things. And but she thought that she knew better in some circumstances, and so she became frustrated, and then so they did things, and it was clear it didn't end up being something that they felt good about. I'm not saying, I don't know to what degree, these words sound so final, the way I'm saying them, but, and so they, so Doe thought about that, and that's when he started to recognize, well, not started to, but when he ended up recognizing that T was his older member. That T was significantly older than him in the next level. The age of their souls, their soul bodies. If you want to call it a soul body, is according to T and Doe, a plasma kind of physicality, plasma-like. You can name a beer, Plasma Light. Somebody's probably done it already. But, morning, Harm. Yeah, so I was talking about the revealing and scripture a little bit here when I got off the track and started rambling. And maybe I came to some decent orbits. Tina used to talk in terms of orbits, learning right in the beginning. They had us walk around in a circle. We weren't holding hands. We were probably socially distant, proper in those days. Of course, it's 6 feet apart or so. And, which I say that with laughter, who knows if that was derived from that, because the next level mind comes to the planet and everybody can draw on it. And so they get ideas that end up manifesting themselves. Even in people's minds they manifest, as well as manifest in the physical world. And imprint upon our genetics of our vehicles. Anyway, but I got off the track again. But the revealing that's talked about here, well, you got the context, of course, and the context is a lot, right? That so when you see the lightning. Well, let me just go through it since I'm doing it. I might as well try to do it right. So it says in the beginning of it, let's see, I don't want to take that much time to go through every word here because it's not important. But Jesus is talking about his return, okay? And and he's saying that the kingdom of God doesn't come with observation in Luke 17:21, and that it's within you. And that's where a lot of people began to recognize that they didn't need to have be with a group of people because they could have a relationship with each one to the older member. And that the kingdom of God is within you. Was talking about the soul deposit. That plasma-like consistency of physicality, object, container, actually. And pillowcase was the first word, though, used to describe it. And he also used pocket to describe it. And then later, when we saw the Bob Lazar story, and there was that yellow book in it, Doe felt that the word container that was used in Bob Lazar's testimony of reading that yellow book a little bit, that supposedly came from the aliens, which I don't doubt is possible. And I have no reason to not actually believe that it happened. Anyway, but which of course that gets into a big debate, but that's fine. It's all belief when you don't actually have experience with something, except for in the mind. But then when you see a vehicle changing because of what you do, then we get evidence that the disciplines work. Because we are disciplining a horse, these vehicles. And the horse wants to be fed sugar sometimes. So you go out and get sugar, or you get whatever sugar is to you. And but the idea is that so you give your horse that, but you try to keep it under, so it doesn't want it all the time. but what if it does? It's like, what are you going to do? You just keep on going in forward motion. That's the alternative that you want to get at, and you work your way up into feeling like you have the energy and willpower to do it, to get off of the drug of sexuality. But you don't quit because you can't, get off it. Or I shouldn't say can't, because that's not in T&O's dictionary. It's always a matter of our choice. And it's frequently a lot easier than it sounds. But I can't say that I've experienced from being in the world to have arrived at that. I didn't, because I didn't have my. I mean, I had a partner for 5 years, but which forms enough of an attachment and all that. In all ways, I believe, I think, and but we were kind of on the way out, which there's a lot of evidence of. And so I'm talking about individual that is the webmasters, one of the webmasters of the Heaven's Gate website, Sarah. We were partners, and we joined together in 1975. We had lived together for close to 5 years. Anyway, so why did I get into talking about Sarah? Oh yeah, so when T&O came around, and I knew the program was to lose my sexuality. I don't even remember them talking about it, but he probably said it in the meeting, but I don't remember much of the meeting. In fact, I don't remember any of the meeting except for what I saw and felt that I went to there in Walport, Oregon in September 14th, 1975. I mean, what I've told the press many times, which I think they've rarely used, in the press documentary crews, was that I felt like I saw a haze in the middle of the room. And also, I mean, the stage was lit up, and I thought I saw a haze there too around them. I mean, it was very, very shimmering kind of light, like the aurora borealis. Maybe I don't know if I can compare it to that, but I mean, you might think it was smoke, and maybe it was smoke from their fire. Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. Because the smoke was in the records was the prayers of the saints. So in other words, the desire of the students to be the best they can be as a human in a human vehicle. Anyway, so I want to get back to something else. I know I probably left something lingering there, but so Doe realized that. So T never told Doe that she was his older member that I ever heard him say anything about. But she knew she was his older member. So I'm sure she said that to him, told him that. Well, I'm not sure. I shouldn't say that. See, I was using my own mind, a little ad lib there, but thank goodness I caught it. Because it's real important to try to stick to what you know. The vehicle likes to embellish. And then pretty soon, after you do it a number of times, you think you know it. And that's why, like Joe Biden with his his graduation class. They lied about and was caught lying about. I mean, lying is normal. It's like, like they say in the network marketing business, fake it till you make it. So, so you want to look the part of success if you're going to expect to be successful in the financial world. Anyway, that's, you can look at that as a path to the top of the mountain. All the religions are paths to the top of the mountain, and all the sciences, and all the art, and all the biological and theoretical and philosophical and intellectual and love, parenting, all equal, I believe, paths to the top of the mountain, so that nobody actually gets left out. And they're all like in 12 grades in school. Tiendo taught it from the beginning. And in the first 6th grade, you're getting into the human kingdom, and then in the last 6th grade, the next level is helping you get out of everything you got into. So in the 6th grade, you've got everything going for you. You got financial things in order and in good order, and your health, and everything's manageable. Everything's going well. Your family life, you're giving to the different civic groups, and participating in philanthropic things or whatever. I don't know. Where the line is drawn. There's no line really necessarily that's defined like that. But I don't believe. But and so that's like the epitome. I probably missed some things. An epitome of being a human. And nothing at all wrong with that. It's natural. It's it's not actually the product of something natural. But I don't want to get distracted into that. Because the next level is the most natural. This is my stupid brain going through that. Now that's worthless stuff. So just chalk it up to babbling, not rambling. Greetings, Jeff. Let's see here. Where was I? Revealing. I don't know. So. And so then he said, Jesus said that he would be going away, and then you will desire to see him, but you won't. And then and they shall say to you, see here and go there after him, but do not follow after them, because there's going to be like lightning that lighteth out of one part of under heaven, shineth unto other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. For his lightning lighteneth. Now that word lightning comes from the word astrape, which means lightning or light shining. Used one time as light shining and 8 times as lightning. Also, it's like, so they're actually saying lightning, right? Okay, so, and then it says, gosh, I can barely read that. Oh, 1a is of the gleam of a lamp. Of the gleam of a lamp. The gleam of a lamp. Remember how Jesus taught that the eye was the lamp of the body? And that when you made your eye single, your whole body was filled with light. Okay, so that's Tino talked about. They didn't talk about this that I ever heard. Certainly not in any kind of classroom setting. It would have been, if they did talk about this, it was in the campground that Stewart would know something about. Anyway. But because what they said in the very beginning was that a light was coming from the distant heavens that was shining on the planet, and it was going to accelerate all life on Earth. And accelerate means it's speeding up the evolution by giving it actually energy, literal energy, to have a thirst for higher thoughts, higher behaviors, higher ways, higher, something that's more than we have on Earth. And so people have a thirst for that, and a lot of times that thirst is stimulated by things going difficulties. Okay, even dying stimulates a questioning of our lives and the thought of dying, and that can happen many times, no matter what age you are. I'm sure of that, even though I can't remember really thinking about it when I was young, much. So it's natural for me to not be worried about dying when I joined with T and Do. Because I hadn't that many attachments. So it was easy in a sense. And the ones that had the hardest job, like leaving family members behind, like Lagodi and Junodi left a baby behind. But that would be one special baby, I bet you. Well, I don't know. I mean, special meaning someone that has some genetic mind that Junodi had. Because Tiendo taught right from the beginning that you can change your genes. And that your genetic mind was separate from the genetic biology. It's the polarity. It's the electronics in each particle, or the element that creates the ionic exchange, right? That's how the mineral kingdom, I think, communicates, by exchanging ions. And I'm sure there's a lot of things about this I don't know anything about. That's about the extent of it. I'm no expert on any of that. But if the view is incorrect, please correct me. And while I'm saying that, might as well, okay, chat room's clear. So let me get back to so, and both of these are the same word, right? I didn't check that. Okay, close and lightning is, strop O. Okay, now the second one, so it's the gleam of a lamp, also as a dazzling object, which shine is another way of saying it. So it's actually shining something. So it's like, it sounds like this first lightning is a comet or something. Because it's a gleam in the heavens. Because it's saying it's coming out of one part of heaven, under heaven. So it's under the heaven where the next level is. And so that the under heaven would be the what Do called the near space around the earth. The way I understand this to work at the moment. And so the under heaven, yes, that makes the most sense to me, which can be seen in Revelation chapter 14 as the mid-heaven, the middle heaven, or maybe the idea of purgatory, someplace to store spirits and souls that is actually removable, as it seems to imply in Revelation chapter 6 that I went through last night a little bit, or yesterday morning a little bit, but I didn't get to that verse and spend any time on that verse, for whatever it might be worth. So this lightning, this gleam of light, is actually sending out a gleam of light. Because there's two different words. Lightness is like the verb of that, I guess. Yeah, it's a verb. It's putting something into motion. And it's going from one part under heaven, and then it's shining unto other part under heaven. So that's that's a streaking appearance, if you could see it, right? You don't know what part of the light spectrum it is, but why would they make it invisible if they want to make an impression by it. Because light also relates to sunlight, of course, in its root. But I don't know. I was just overthinking it there. But and what he's saying is the Son of Man is in his day. So what is Son of Man? That's offspring human. Because the word man is anthropos. So like anthropology, right? It's really neat to see those connections. And it refers to it, the number one definition is a human being, whether male or female. So a lot of times they put the words backwards in the Greek from the way the Americans do it. And I don't know much about that, but when you say put son in front of it, the word son is coming from huios, or something like that. Huios. Maybe you don't pronounce the H. Huios. Anyway, it's the kind of sound that I'm not used to making. Anyway, it's a son rarely used for the young of animals. Oh, okay. Generally used of the offspring of men. Right, offspring. That's the word I use when I analyze this with my book. So the offspring human, or human offspring. In other words, he's going to be born again into water, flesh, in order to relate to the other souls that were coming back to be born again of flesh. A lot of Christians don't think about this like this. I'm sure some do. Maybe many, Okay, but first, now what that means is proton, which is first in time or place, in any succession of things or persons. First in rank, influence, honor, chief principle, first. It's an adverb, neuter adverb. First of all, it's translated to at the first or the first. And then it's the miscellaneous translations. Chief is also another word for it. Influence, honor. I'm not sure which one. Maybe I should look at the rest of it. I didn't mean to get into this kind of detail because I'm really not that keen right now. Trying to get it. I'm kind of slow, I know, but sorry about that. But every time I read these, I think about them sometimes a little differently, and that's how I. So I can't help but try to. I apologize, but first he must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. Luke 17:25. For anybody that just joined us. So rejected of this generation. Okay, now talking about the generation of people, because that word generation is genes, genia, fathered, birth, nativity, that which has been begotten. So right there, he's proving that there's going to be um, vehicles. Uh, I'm sorry, I got off. Let me see if I can simplify this in my own head instead of trying to go through, get to my point more that I want to actually make with this. I mean, the point is that he has to be, he's going to be rejected. And Doe was certainly rejected. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. Now he's describing that everybody in the world is eating and drinking and getting married and giving in marriage, and then the floods came and destroyed them all. Okay, so likewise was going to be the same kind of thing. And to me, that's a great way that it ends. It's a quick. Well, I don't know. I guess it took 40 days for Noah to get in the ark and see if it worked. I don't know. I'm being silly, but it's all possible that it could happen exactly that way. Anyway, I'm not saying I don't know if parts of it were exaggerated, because Tiendo said that everything in the Old Testament couldn't be counted on, but you could count on the red letters in the New Testament, the letters that of Jesus, what Jesus said. But nowadays they put red letters around the things that Paul said, Jesus said, that Paul didn't hear from Jesus' mouth. But got from a spirit or a space alien or his imagination, which would have been through a spirit. Not that Paul didn't have value. I mean, and Paul wasn't going through his own lessons. The soul. It might have graduated. Or he might be a dropout. Now, when I say he, I'm talking about could it be a he or a she. Doesn't make any difference now. And didn't even make any difference before, because the female vehicles, they were also in the same classroom. They just weren't, I guess, maybe they weren't sent out. Well, I guess, I don't know if some of them went with their partners and things like that, or if they formed part. Yeah, he did send them out in twos, but he didn't describe what proportion of males to females. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I know there were a lot of laws on where a female could go if they had a chaperone and stuff like that of a certain age and things like that. So it could be difficult. Who knows? Who's gonna try to get with that person and stuff like that. If people don't have much restraint, which hopefully, thankfully we've been more civilized than that. That's the next level civilization program. Is what they're doing, and so now you have people that are devout atheists, but they don't know that a lot of their standards came from what Jesus taught. That an eye for an eye doesn't work, because both people end up being blind. From, I think that was a quote from Nelson Mandela, maybe. It sounds like T and Do's mind to me. Anyway, so, gosh, let's see here. So in other words, he's talking about leaving everything behind with the story of Lot, right? And so that's what goes with, because the object is to separate from the human kingdom. And but to do that by experience, not by committing suicide. But it does result that when your vehicle dies from natural causes or from somebody else's hand or an accident or whatever, how it happens, that spirit gets what it believed when it died. So I didn't mean to, I shouldn't have went down that additional area because it distracted me from the reason I was talking about that. Sorry. This is going to be one of those tapes to probably throw away. But well, you all know me already. That this is what I do. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? To lose track of where you are, where you are going, or I usually can get back to it when I go back to the scripture. But so Lot leaves, and then everything, so we may still have to experience that, and that might be what Kathy Southwestern is feeling so much, to where she would want to be with those that she was kin to with her mind, other people that are trying to make application to being a student, to being an active student in T&Do's classroom in the setting that we have now. And so all our lessons are coming to us. So even being by ourselves is not a negative. If we, like one of the things that Do said that he did to feel to give his vehicle comfort, like at night, with its emotions, he would wrap his arms around himself, his body, like I'm sitting here now, with my arms crossed. Or like this, or whatever. He didn't say exactly how the arms had to be, but like you were hugging yourself. And he got some comfort from that. Because the vehicle is a horse. It really is. Well, I can't be full circle in that regard, right? Eventually. But, so when it says, but the same day, day means a period of time. So in that day, he said, who's in the house, then you're gonna want to leave quickly. And that's what T&Do taught in 1975 when they said, take 2 or 3 days to leave. And put your house in order. Put your affairs in order. Don't leave a mess, they said. But they left it up to us to how to do that. And if there were they had a little meeting where we went that was before they told us where to go, where T&Do were. And that's when they learned that Ron and Judy, or maybe on the phone with them, because they were on the phone with us, they learned about the two children that Ron and Judy had. And who were my best friends in Newport, Oregon at the time. Anyway, I'm getting off track again, but I do want to get back to the revealing. Let me get back to it. Okay, so then it says, whoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whatever shall lose his life shall preserve it. Now, that's the separation from the human kingdom, even a separation from our vehicles. We're all going to separate from our vehicles. And we're not to bring it on now because we need our vehicles in order to learn lessons through and to serve T&O, which is the lesson step. That is the overriding lesson step that we all need to apply to some degree in order to catch the eye of the older members that we want to be of service. We want to do something. We don't want to just get a free ride. And it's difficult. And but then we'll get mind from them when we put it into motion. What I did when I wanted to do it, and because I had this mindset that I was being like Jesus, taught, and I was, and so I was like a zealot in a sense, and I'm not saying that in a good way. I was, I recognized later that my ego was there because even from a young guy, I want to think of myself as being like the hero that Jesus was. Even though I didn't understand anything about what, I understood that was something to aspire to. That wasn't a bad thing to aspire to, but it's the hero part. The behavior and ways and thinking isn't bad to aspire to, not at all. But it's the hero part, meaning that you're looked up to by people. You don't want to be looked up to by people, other humans. You want to be looked up. You want your older member to approve of what you're doing. And so when you have that relationship, which we have to work on. We can't assume we have that relationship. Because the older members, they they know what we're going through, and they know what we're a part of, and they know what we're capable of, and they know we can always do better. They don't, but they don't force us into anything. We have to come to it with our own mind, with our own desire. And Scripture isn't going to help us have it. Well, it can. It can stimulate something in us because it stimulates a memory that our genes have, and also that our genetic mind has from having the genetic relationships in the past with people that were having contact with older members when they came in the flesh. So, different things, I would say that the other lamb in Revelation 13, the other horn of the lamb, is kind of the Buddhist Hindu or Asian religious paths, which might include, it's like Islam is like a combination, right? Because Islam came, my understanding is that it came from the Sufis, which were offspring of Hindu, I think, rather than Buddhist. Anyway, I was just going through that kind of like little reflection as I understand it. I might got some of it wrong. But it's the tree of life. It's the genetic, like I said in the last live stream. I repeat myself a lot. But I know that there's always somebody that's potentially just somebody that's, listening to this for the first time. Let's see if I want to go through any more of the scriptures. Nothing else in the chat room. Right, it says 2 men will be left in the field, and one shall be taken, and the other left. Now, taken is from the word paralamano. Receive is also used for that. 2 shall receive, one shall receive, and the other one shall not. Receive is used 15 times. Take is used 30 times. Take unto, take up, take away, take up. So that's the next level, choosing which vehicles to pick. Tiendo taught that they help student souls that were being brought back to pick the vehicles that they were going to try to take over and incarnate into, take over. Doe joked, but then he said he didn't mean to joke about it, but he joked with the word body snatchers. I only saw that on a tape. I didn't see that. He didn't say that I can remember when, before I left in 1994. But anyway, so I like to qualify that sometimes. I don't know if it's important. But to accept the knowledge. To accept the knowledge is the other word for taken there. One shall be accepting the knowledge, and the other... I'm spending too much time on this. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the next one. Wait a minute, I missed something here. I forgot to put the accentuate. I went through the whole thing when I really wanted to spend the most time on this one here. Luke 17:30. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Revealed. And that comes from the word apokaluptu. 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 To uncover, lay open what has been veiled or covered. Uncover. Tiendo said that they came undercover. In human vehicles, it means undercover. But that's what their job was. They were sent like behind enemy lines into the snake pit that the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls were operating in. in the unseen world and in the and interfacing with their spacecraft, their physicality. So their physicality even in the unseen world, because they have souls that are those plasma like physicality. So the revealing, to make known, okay? So this is when dough became known. This is talking about the whole time that he became known. Because the revealing is actually, I forgot to say that it's actually a, what kind of word? It's a verb. So it's a process of revealing. It's not, it said like in the past tense here, revealed, but tense, let's see. I don't see any tense listed here. Just says it's a verb. And so that's still happening. And so this is another version of it. It may come to the point to where some of us see something or feel something, and we just go decide to travel someplace. And when I make my best guess at the places where Tino might try to have us travel, would be the southwest of the United States and Texas, central Texas. That's my suspicion. I'm not going to say the reason, because I just saw something on the news. Well, I guess I should put that screen up. That was happening when a whole bunch of three things were happening. Things were happening in threes. And the radar man in Texas saw this on his Doppler radar or whatever it was, and didn't know what it was, and they didn't have any indication from military or industrial or anybody that was making these impressions on the radar, and it just happens to be where we spent most of our time while T was in her vehicle. San Antonio, Austin. We never spent any time in Waco in particular, but Dallas-Fort Worth, a lot of time in Dallas. And I can remember when we were down in San Antonio, I think it was when we were in Kerrville, which is near San Antonio. That's when Tino talked about some kind of a triangle underground, like an aquifer or something. But they talked about it as a triangle, and that they didn't say what was under there, but they were certainly outlining it as a special place. And they said one other time they took, not years before that, they took, well, no. I think maybe when we went there the first time, we went to New Mexico from Wyoming through Utah. And we got to New Mexico, and they said that there was, they felt like there was a triangle between towns here in this area. And I kind of think that might be like, what do you call it? Well, Albuquerque might be in the middle of it, or in the middle, kind of as the biggest city that's in the middle of that area. So I've thought about going there. Wow, I was just thinking about that because the way things are going, I don't really want to live in a state that's going to require me to wear a mask all the time when I'm even outside my house. They were saying that you should wear a mask inside the house too. In Australia, I think I remember hearing that report. They're out of control, totally out of control. There's so much deceit and manipulation happening. There's no way to keep up with it, and it's not going to get better in that regard. So, so this is this is the norm, that it keeps on going in this direction. It doesn't stay the same. With their with Biden announcing that they're going to have contact tracers, it's going to be like what? It's the contact tracer police is what it's going to be. The medical unit contact tracers that as they say that they won't actually force anybody to do anything, but if you're sick in your house and they go to that house and they deem that the kids are in danger of getting sick, then they would take your kids out. So what does that mean? If you got a runny nose and your neighbor saw you, using a handkerchief or coughing, all of a sudden the neighbor then is going to become the citizen police that calls up this number and contacts the contact tracers to say that there's somebody that I've seen outside sometimes not wearing a mask. And I saw him coughing also. And so all of a sudden now they send him to that person's house. And his whole life could be disrupted because of that. That's what we're looking at is possible to happen because the people that are orchestrating this think that they're above human because they're getting their direction indirectly and from the space alien Luciferians. The space aliens, Luciferian souls with their hybridized human vehicles spent time in the next level. They have a next level perspective in that regard, of that humans are a different kingdom level. The mammals. But they're also, they are human equivalents, Tiendo called them. Because they haven't grown with their minds above human, and they still require the biology in order to do things when they don't have the vehicle that they once had anymore, even though that vehicle lasted for a lot longer than human vehicles lasted. So they were in the spirit world for a long time. That's what it talks about as being locked up. But that doesn't mean that they don't have access to doing things, but maybe not. Maybe they're kept, you know. But then you got whatever you have from the last influence in spirits, all the people that died that were influenced by those souls that were the dropouts that went against the next level. They all have the memory of that, so they're part of that database and in that genetic mind, and that then gets expressed through each vehicle, subconsciously, right? And so we don't a conscious mind that's developing from birth, sees things in the genetic mind as it interacts with the biology and also the brain and the way of thinking, and to where all of a sudden we start to see, well, look at that, that's a characteristic that I think my mother has. That I hadn't seen before. Doesn't mean it wasn't there. It's just I hadn't recognized it before. Because I was told as a young kid that I had a big ego. Not a young kid, but I was like 19. That's not necessarily a kid, but in terms of responsibilities, I certainly didn't have any. So I was a kid in that way. Not that I wouldn't have gotten a job. I would have tried to get a job. But I was not, certainly not any kind of a goody two-shoes kind of person. I stole from the stores where I worked sometimes. Money. So I hadn't outgrown it from the years I did that before. Restitution, right? I mean, the thing is, I did outgrow it, and I can't remember, go through my, memory banks. I mean, you can say that I stole when I moved to Canada because I got a hold of some credit card numbers that were used for telephones. They weren't credit card numbers; they were just telephone numbers. They called them. They still have them, I think. Where you got a certain amount of money by using a certain code. So, so people who just, I was living on the road, so on the street, basically, traveling and hitchhiking, through Canada and stuff. And so that's where I came upon them. And then, people would just share them with one another. I don't know. See, they didn't have very good reporting back then. So I even learned that firsthand when I was doing a software project while I was in the classroom, and we were building an application for sending credit card authorizations to through the McDonnell Douglas computers through RS-232, the code, just the regular phone lines, and in a batch mode, so that they can, instead of having a whole bunch of people sending them to the computer individually. And all that labor that's required for that. We ended up selling it to them, and I don't know if they ended up using it. I think we got like $800 for it. No, $1,600 I think it was. But we didn't split it because we were part of the classroom, and so the money just went to the classroom. Little stories. But so the revealing. Now, is it interesting that the word revelation is that, right? The revelation, that word is from the word apokalupis, the same word used in Luke. That's how you can kind of be more confident that something in Revelations is true, is representing something that's going to happen. And I was always hoping to get like 3 of these, but I didn't count them necessarily. But a lot of times I got like 3 verifications of each thing, each major point. And of course they would have context to the Old Testament, which I didn't spend a lot of time on that. But laying bare, this means. Laying bare, making naked, a disclosure of truth. That's how all different ways it's used. Well, no, a coming, also a coming, a manifestation. So a lot of times it means all those words that they use can have relevance, big and small. So disclosure of truth, yes. Instruction, that's right. They're telling us what the rules are. Overcoming of the human kingdom, talks about in Revelation 2 and 3, right? To those who overcome. And that's a process. Tiendo talked about it as a process. They didn't talk about overcoming right away that I ever heard. I'm using that terminology. They used the word that you were entering into a process. Concerning things before unknown. Concerning things before unknown. There you go. It's bringing new things to light, right? And that's what Jesus also said in this, that he was bringing more light to the understanding, the rays of light, lightning that lighteth. The mind from the next level. That all the members of the next level have that. It's power, it's force. It's literal, physical force. It can actually exert, it can move mountains like Jesus said, if it gets to be experienced enough. Now, I don't know that if, but the way they might do that is by, having something happen in the sun to move the magma around. So, but they have enough power that they know how to interface with something on the sun. I don't know, but they could do that with some kind of a device that they make too. Because Doe talked about that they made robots that would go to places where the vehicles would be killed because of. The vehicles can be killed. But they're only killed if they're in an environment where they could be killed, and they know what kind of environments those are. coming down to earth is a place where they could be killed. I'm talking about the vehicles that they have, that their soul body is piloting. That's why you need to learn those disciplines of taking over the vehicle now, because those same strength of discipline is what will be required in order to make the new vehicle work that you're given to be the pilot of, attached to. It is an attachment to it, but doesn't mean that it can't come off, or I don't know how there are different ways of coming off. Dying might be one of the ways that they come off, but Lado said that he put his vehicle, his next level vehicle, in a closet. That's what I remember him saying. Wow. Well, see, those three radar blips, I don't know how long they lasted on there, but the guy's pointing to them. And I mean, it was on the news in a few places, I think. I bet a bunch of places. Who knows if somebody shut it down. Or it could have been, you could say, well, it was a test of some military device, which is fine. Sure, it could be that. I'd like to, if somebody's got evidence of that, fine. Because the next level could have also stimulated people that wanted to do that kind of thing to do that in this kind of way. See, they didn't have to be the ones to actually come with a spacecraft of some sort or do something from a computer system wherever they are inside of whatever craft they're in. Crafts they're in, plural. But, so, who knows how many ways. But, see, I'm always looking for things that are unusual. And so when I came upon this, I was like, okay, that's unusual. And it just happens to be related to where T and O spend most of their time. So I make these connections then start to form in my head. And then I start to, even look at, to where it's like, I don't know, probably too much detail, and where the radar signal is weaker or whatever, I don't know, but I suspect that might become beachfront property, right there. But I don't know, who'll be around to use it at that point. Wow. My back just started to hurt. So maybe I need to get up and stretch a little bit. So the revealing is the revelation. So that's still happening. So, Revelation 6 also talks about people losing their lives for the kingdom of heaven's sake. And, so it might come to that for some of us. I'd rather lose my life that way than a slow death somewhere. Even if I'm comfortable, if I can, if I can't function. And Doe talked about how if you were in a place where you didn't choose to lay down your life at that point, because that's always an option. It's like they didn't take away that option. I mean, if you're unable to be of service, especially, I guess, I don't know at what point I would be in that condition. I might never be in that condition. But, well, what he said was that you could get yourself a gun, a rifle, and then when authorities knew that you were a religious nut, or whatever they're going to think about you, because they think that's totally wacky, and these people are crazy and they're anti-science, which couldn't be further from the truth. But that if they saw that you were armed, then that would be their justification to take you out. But he said you should learn how to shoot it. Maybe so that you can make sure that you shoot it in the air or something, or I don't know why learn how to shoot it, but because I don't know, it might be handy also to if there's people that are that you feel are trying to do something to you or take away your kids or something. I don't know, what the next level would say to that, except that, you have to use your best judgment. But I think you would try not to hurt anybody. So, but there's nothing wrong with self-defense, but you don't want to live by weapons, because those who live by weapons, they die by the weapons. And so, in other words, if death is better than taking somebody else's life, because the next level can just take your soul or spirit and put you in another vehicle. They can even make a vehicle for you because you showed them that you were going to do your best to live by that instruction. Now, if you're somebody that has already taken somebody else's life, that's not the end of you. No, those individuals are forgiven also by the next level, but they have to deal with the karma of that, and that becomes a heavy weight. And so maybe their biggest job would be to just stay alive and keep on, trying to heal and bring about healing in any people that we harmed. At least in our thoughts, if we can't do it in our physicality circumstance. And that's why people sometimes, would have ceremonies and things. I'm not saying that, but the person that has the intention and wishes that they could make amends to somebody that they harmed, and maybe tries in some way, and even tries a lot. I don't think that would be a bad thing, but that's my opinion anyway. And Tiendo didn't teach that kind of recommendation, but I'm not getting any signs that that's not part of what a member of the next level would do, because members of the next level will give their lives for their older members. lives of their vehicles. And that's why they came to demonstrate that again by depositing their physical vehicles, their dense physical vehicles, into this atmosphere through the Roswell crash. And I know it wasn't in Roswell, but the plains of San Augustine. And wow, I don't know. From so who are the seven churches? Well, they're the seven groups of souls that are coming from different places uh, with their vehicles, from different places in the Middle East and wherever else, they're, people migrate, right? So, all right, I guess 70 weeks. Yeah, that goes to Daniel's. But the seven was also a number of how many times you you said something, I think out loud, but maybe to yourself and out loud, when you wanted to, live by a certain rule, certain instruction, like Moses had plenty of. That's another similarities between Moses and the Moses classroom and the T&O classroom. There were a lot of instructions, a lot of things to keep in mind before you did something. Imagine all those people that, they would see a woman they're interested in and they would be right on her right away, So that there had to be, so the next level, T said, had to bring order to that. Good evening, Kathy Southwestern. I've been doing a lot of rambling and some babbling a little as well, Kathy Southwestern. And can't see me? Oh, that's right, you can't see me. I'm over here. I'm like behind this guy's, inside this guy's body here. What the heck? I want to change the screen anyway. Oh, I see it's over here. I gotta bring it to the forward. I'm not gonna bother with that right this second. I'm gonna switch screens anyway. Where am I going back to though? Did I finish with the scripture? I've been talking a lot about scripture in Luke and related to the revealing. That we're in the process of the revealing that started when T&O came and when they first went public and started telling people who they were. And and how the revelation is saying the same thing. It's describing the revealing during the time that it's happening. Of course, leading up to it as well. I believe it. I believe the records kind of indicate that the seven angels sounding their trumpets was starting around the turn of the century, the 20th century. So 1900 and early 1900s. And 1897 might have been like the kind of the John the Baptist kind of thing, of the forerunner of the return that happened 50 years later in 1947, and then 50 years after that, 1997. There's that three there, 3 periods of time. That we're still in the last stage of. And so, things are going to be wrapping up, so, and getting to be more difficult. So I hope we can each find some place to live like that's not in a big city. But I don't know, certain cities, the next level is, they have their eyes on all the individuals that want them to have their eyes on them. So we can trust a lot of that, but we can't take anything for granted. So, and we don't want to test ourselves. Like if we get signals that we could be someplace else, then it would behoove us, I think, to stay open to that signal, and then see if you see any more signals of doing that, and to get an idea of how quickly to do so if you were thinking about a move. Or you might, I know let me see here. I'll go back to the chat room. I see you all are communicating there. So Kathy Southwestern says, lately I've been feeling different, hopeful. I've been feeling really hopeful. It's nice, laughing out loud. Cool. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Because it's true, there is a lot to hope for. Because there is a sense that we'll be okay. We'll get through it. And they've even given that to us now. Look at the election stuff, right? And before that, the COVID stuff. And before that, the financial stuff. And before that, the terrorist stuff. And and before that, and all the war stuff, and all those things that we've all been going through. I guess depending on what our ages of our vehicles, of course. But we experience the young experience from their parents who have the experience, and so sometimes they get a spin of it. I guess they always get a spin of it because we all are spinning it in a sense. Well, not spinning it, because spinning kind of connotes that you're trying to make it be a certain way. And to me, that's not the way it necessarily works. I don't believe. Like with my daughter, I don't try to direct her in how to think, but okay, folks. Sorry, I spaced out thinking about something else. Wow, Harm. Uh, yes, Doe was the second coming. I mean, T and Doe were the second coming. I'm sorry, Harm. I didn't. I didn't. I saw what Kathy Southwestern said above you, but Harm says my dad committed suicide, but it did not hurt me that much because I knew he wanted to go somewhere else to his mom and dad. He said, and I have so much respect for that. I hope he is with Tiendo. Wow, that's that's uh, that's that's to me beautiful. That the positivity of that because um, you know because we did have that to respect your elders was like um, one of the early lessons to have. You know, honor them, be honest with them is the way I think about that. It doesn't mean that you only do what they tell you. That's that would be not right because they don't own their children according to T and Do. So they try to get them started and give them the best life they can, and then it's time for them to fly the coop. Not always. No, I mean they have to want to do that. If they don't want to do that, you don't want to force them to do it. I don't think. Um, wow. Okay. When my dad left, I was in the classroom, and I had a story about that. I've told it before that might be meaningful because it was meaningful to me because I woke up one time and I was in the top bunk in a two-level bunk bed, and I sat up the way I remember it, is I sat up suddenly, like in the morning, like I was waking up, uh, having had a dream that my dad died of a massive heart attack. So I told Doe about it, my vehicle's dad, I'm talking about, of course. Um, well, I don't talk about Doe as my dad, so I'm sorry. I'm just. Um, and so I told Doe about it, and Doe came to me in person. He might have been living in that same craft at that time. So and said, well, how do you feel about it? Do you want to call him? I said, well, no, I don't really feel like I have to call him. I think I'm not. It's that's what I said. I honestly felt that way. I wasn't. Maybe there was a little bit of me that knew that uh, I didn't want to give in to being attached to my vehicle's family. But that, was like a tiny percentage of, actually, I was genuinely feeling like I wasn't attached to my dad. Because because maybe he raised me with a certain detachment. Uh, not that he was a bad dad, he was a great dad, as far as I was concerned. And, and so, but anyway, so I ended up a little while after that. I don't know how long it was, days, weeks, maybe. Um, Doe instigated anybody that wanted to call their vehicle's family or whoever was their loved one that would be wondering about them. Which we did that like once a year after T left her vehicle, and sometimes more often than that with communication. With some of our materials, we communicated with them. But so so anyway, so on that phone call that I made to my parents and siblings, um, I talked to my dad. Okay, I talked to my mom, my vehicle's mom and dad, and I asked how they were, but I talked mostly about myself, of course, because they were a little awkward. I didn't really enjoy talking to them because I knew they disapproved of what I was being so silent and far away about. But I was also kind of used to that. Not being approved of. So I guess that's part of what helped me detach. Maybe that's what I stimulated. I made that, you know. Anyway, so just thinking about that, crazy. But I'm sorry if I'm boring you. Gene Scott used to say that, and we were watching, while I was in the classroom, we'd be watching Gene Scott on the television, I guess. I can remember seeing him. Maybe it was a video. I'm not sure which it was. But he used to say to his congregation, which I'm not comparing them to you being my congregation. I don't think that way at all. But he had a congregation, and he used to say to them once in a while, "Am I boring you?" And Doe got a kick out of that. Sorority in the exit videos mentioned Gene Scott, I believe, and also mentioned now I'm forgetting his name. The guy over in Arkansas. Anyway, I'm not going to go through that. I've talked about him before. So let me go back to the chat room. Oh, Kathy says, wow, you got, okay, I'm still going up and looking at what, Kathy Southwestern says, T and Doe were the two, but when T left her vehicle, Doe said he was the same soul mind. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm being particular on the terminology because of thinking that you might communicate this to other people. So I wouldn't say soul as Jesus because it's the soul in Jesus. That was in Jesus. That was incarnate in Jesus. Because it's not the vehicle. And the reason I'm bringing that up as a particular because Jesus said that nobody would come back in his name saying that they were the Christ. And that's why Doe put Jesus in quotes in the book, in the document, Undercover Jesus. I don't know that, I can't say that from experience of being with him then, but I know that that's the way we always used Jesus because right from the beginning they said that they were not Jesus. They said it that way too. They were not Jesus, as if Jesus was more than one person. Which he was, because he was the second coming that the Christians call a second coming. But it's interesting that Doe came forward as being the same soul after T left her vehicle. Because he first got that instruction in 1987, approximately, while we were in Boulder, Colorado. And we were on Los Angeles Road and up the Boulder Canyon. When Doe held a meeting and we were overlooking the whole canyon. Not the canyon. No, we were overlooking the valley where Boulder and Denver were. Well, we couldn't see Denver. Well, maybe we could have. I don't know. For sure, actually. But he said that we need to be who we are. He held a meeting. And that's when we started. That's when he went out and he bought a bunch of different kinds of Bibles and Strong's Concordance and made it optional. But that we were trying to figure out how to speak to the people that were Christians, how to speak their language, and in our to have an interface. And Or was there another way that we were going to communicate? And then he explored going through like the Sexaholics Anonymous and the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous groups. And so he sent somebody to, Alex Odie went over to California. We were living, I think, in Texas at the time, or maybe New Mexico, or Arizona, or Las Vegas. I'm not, maybe it was Arizona. I don't know. But he, so Alex Odie went over there with, I don't know, if probably a partner, but Alex Odie ended up talking to the Sexaholics people and telling them that, that by going cold turkey, they found the best way to stop, and they told them the techniques that they were using. I don't know how much they said about it. But I know he read The Power of Goodness, which is the document that he wrote. And that the response was that they felt the response was that we thought that they thought that we thought that we were better than them. I don't know if Alex already said anything, but Doe said that one of the problems with those groups is when we go to them over and over again and we continue to tell our story to people, one person after the next, we're in a way kind of stimulating whatever that was, but not for everybody, not necessarily, but, and to degrees, of course. But if we really want to get rid of it, we need to be able to block it out so that we don't even hear the thoughts related to that past behavior and way that we're trying to overcome. And then Kathy Southwestern says in the chat room, the two witnesses from Revelation is what I was referring to. So Doe was one of the witnesses and also the mind of Jesus. Yes, the witnesses were talking about Jesus and his Father. Because talking about the two witnesses is talking about two people. And it describes those people as being olive trees, which goes back to the idea of the oil and the burning of the oil, and the saving of the oil and the use of the oil produces energy, and so that's mind. That's by following instructions, you're actually following the mind of the next level into your behaviors and ways, and so you're actually taking their mind into the soul body, and so that actually gives you more light inside your body, literal frequency that when you get enough of it ends up to where the person could even be seen as glowing if they got enough into them. Where the ideas of halo came from, I believe. And I suspect. I shouldn't say I believe, I suspect. Because I don't know if T and Doe said it that way, ever. That's why I put it as a belief or suspicion, that last part. But right, and it also says that they were the two. Let me go back to Revelation. Whoops, what am I doing there? Uh, yeah, so, right, and see, they say that these two people that are giving their testimony, that's from the word martus. Martus actually is a relationship in the Greek, seems to be related to the word, and it's actually used as an interpretation 3 times as martyr. But in this interpretation, I think they got it right, but it's actually, and also record is used, martus as a record. So they're updating the records. Wow, I hadn't seen that before. And because Tienda said that in the very beginning that they were here to update the Bible, and the Bible was considered to be the record. Wow, that's cool. And being a witness is also in a legal sense one who is a spectator of anything. So Tiendo said in the very beginning that they felt like the next level was using them as cameras, their eyes. And they enjoyed that because they weren't told what to do, but they had to try to figure out what to do. So that's the difference between the next level and what the Luciferians do. The Luciferians tell you what to do. Go do this or do that, or change this or change that, or give your money to that group or that group, or and all the people and all the spirits and all the humans that have that programming of telling people what to do. Like Hillary Clinton said in her book on the back cover, because I couldn't read the whole book, said, I just wanted to run something. I just wanted to run something. That was her motivation for her political career. She wanted to be something special, right? She had that booger. Or wanted to be seen as something special. That booger. Which is more likely the case. I don't know which one it was or is. We all have these boogers. So it's those word for them. And discarnates are different from that. They're not all boogers in that sense, because some of those discarnates are helpful to us. So some influences that we don't want to talk harshly to them about, staying away from us, because we know they have a good intention. Like, let's say you have a favorite aunt or something that, aunt or uncle. I'm not trying to be sexist here, but that's just what occurred to me. But you can say that's from my programming. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We all have it, different ways. And but to call attention to it by telling everybody I'm sexist because I think about describing things and using the word woman to describe the person, when I don't use the word man to describe the person. I might say guy. Well, because man has that connotation of being Adam, or well, I just lost you for a second there. But I'm going to go to Yeah, two olive trees and two candlesticks. Candlesticks has to do with, again, the oil that the fire burns from. And then the smoke from that fire burning is the prayers of the saints. So in other words, and so the oil is using our force. It's the force of that light. And that's why conserving it and not giving away our force through sexuality is holding on to our power and redirecting it to be used by our mind to want to do want to like if it occurs to we can ask the next level for help in this department or that department, or whatever we want to ask them, without giving them a remedy is the best way to learn to ask, communicate with next level members, older members. Because they do know better than us about all things. But they're not like overbearing about that. Not overbearing is not the right word. They're not judgmental about that. They know that we're children. But they also know that they're children to their older members. So if they get a big head about that being, they'll quickly see that there was no value to it, and I don't know if they still have smatterings of that while they're in a next level vehicle. Maybe it depends on what kind of next level vehicle they're in, and because they're not going to necessarily lose everything from the human kingdom before they leave. And Doe even said that some would have to return to the human kingdom to complete their overcoming. But I don't have any doubt that they're all going to get next level vehicles. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they could do that right away with some. The next level could choose to do what they want to do. So whenever we try to limit the next level, then if Tiendo didn't say it specifically or imply it strongly, we can't second guess them. I mean, we could try to second guess them, but it doesn't do any good. But sometimes it's not a bad thing to do, in a sense, when you're trying to understand things, to see things from a different angle. And Tiendo gave an example of that when in 1978 they told us that they might leave before us, talking about leaving their vehicles, or just go off and not come back. They didn't really say exactly what would happen, but that they were concerned for us and whether we'd be able to survive without them. And they were rightfully concerned because they didn't take lightly the individuals that were giving their all at all. And I remember that, and I was telling that story to Pip Odie, who's somewhere living somewhere around here, or no, I don't mean not around me, but around the United States, I think. Last I talked to him, maybe a couple of years ago. Anyway, maybe just a year ago, but he remembered that 1978 meeting. It was very meaningful to him. And so that, in a sense, was preparing us for their leaving ahead of us, which we really weren't thinking about before that. I didn't think about that at all, how that might work or happen. I was just keeping up with everything. So what they were witness to was what they knew. They were providing a testimony to us. They were telling us the truth about what they knew. And they were witnesses to one another. So T was the witness to Doe. In other words, T is a witness to us that Doe is the same soul that was in Adam, Enoch, Moses, Elijah, and Jesus. And you can see that in Revelation 3:12 that I'll go over to. Where it says, "Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name." Now talk about a run-on sentence, right? Doe wrote like this too, so the fact that I do it, I feel like I'm in good company, even though I'm not saying I do it as, Doe's got a lot more clarity than I do. I don't finish thoughts and stuff like that, in your mind. But sometimes it's hard to do though. But there is a lot to say in this, a real lot in this. Am I still ticking? Yep. Still got the sound, right? Nobody's... Maybe before I go to this, I'll go into the chat room again. Right, the mind of Jesus. Right, the mind is the most accurate way to say it, but you can also say it's the Holy Spirit that was in the soul body that Jesus had in him from all his experiences, however long that soul was living in the next level, as a next level member. Which is the information, it's the programming, it's the ways, the behavior, it's the history, the understandings, the desires, the joys, the challenges. All that is in that soul. They may fluff off a lot of the details, but when you study anything or you become good at something, you end up getting a degree of muscle memory from that. That even helps you think about something in more objective ways and more detailed ways, quicker and shortcut certain things so you don't go down certain rabbit holes to try to figure something out because you see through it from the beginning of it. And that's what Doe recognized that T had the ability to do that he didn't. She did it better. She arrived at decisions more quickly regarding certain things. And she understood things from an overview at times that Doe also had. Because they were together working as teams. So they both were receiving the same information through their vehicles at different times and maybe in slightly different ways. But when they would come together and talk about them, they would recognize it was the same information and that they would... And by talking about it, and thinking about it some more, when they went to their privacies, they would continue to be thinking about what that all means, because they would know that they don't have the whole piece. They knew they were working on it, and you know what? I can actually recognize that. I've been going through that, and maybe you all have too. when we like, let's say that when COVID started, we were like, wow, is this really happening? Am I? I feel like I'm going to wake up. Is it still? Was it a dream? You know, a bad dream, a nightmare? Was the way that everything was going, and with all the misinformation that was shooting around, and all the responses, and the government and all that. I mean, I was, I don't have to work for a living, so I can, spend most of my hours every day, studying everything. But I was a basket case of not knowing. It was upsetting. And then I would have to go back to my sources of the other way of looking at it from the mainstream media point of view, like through the different YouTube people that are also on D Live and also different channels. And then when I would listen to them saying the things that had to me had become more real to define what's really happening, because the government tells you nothing, hardly. They just tell you what they think you'll buy, and they want to see whether you're going to buy it or not. And some of them were really surprised at how quickly people and how thoroughly people bought hook, line, and sinker everything they were telling us to do to protect against this virus. That over 99% of the people that get it fully recover. But they keep on hyping. And it doesn't mean that people aren't dying, and even more now, because it comes in waves. And I saw one professor in Ireland talking about Dolores Cahill or something, or McGill, or Dolores something, talking about that it was a 2-year cycle that they know this, the virus. Now that makes sense to me that it might be. And so we will see different, but whether anybody's really dying from that virus anymore, I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're dying with that, whatever they're calling that virus, which I don't know if they've been able to isolate or not, because it's complicated to actually isolate the virus from the other genetic material that it's within. And because I can't think of, I tend to think that they maybe have, see, the evidence that they might not have actually isolated the virus, or what they say in the literature is that they've isolated a part of the virus. So what part? What if it's got 10 different parts that describe it with and even 10 different strengths? So they're finding that strength, okay, but that strength, maybe it would take a trillion particles of that strength for somebody to have symptoms that were, but it depends on the vehicle, and the vehicle's diet, the vehicle's history of diet and mind, behaviors and ways. Because a lot of us, cleanse through sports activity and things like that. We sweat, which is all good for us. We had an exercise program in the classroom, but Tino didn't want us to get really into it that much. But there was no limit on how much we could do it. But if somebody started to get into it too much, like like they were building muscles or something, which some of the vehicles did lend towards doing that. Like mine didn't in that case, but Alex Odie's did in that case, I think. But I did it in when we had a track in South Denver. No, not South Denver, South Austin, south of the city center. I mean, really close, minutes to the city center, and we had like an eighth mile track on the property that we were leasing. And so we got instructions that it would be okay to run around it. And so Alex Odie and I and a few others would go and run around it. And then they said that, you could walk if you want to also. And I didn't try walking, which I should have. See, that's an example of how TNO didn't tell us what to do. I mean, they told us what to do to some degree, but then after they told us what to do, they told us that we could do something else, and then it was our choice to take them up on it or not. And then we found out that some of us were getting into it, and I was one of them. I was getting off on it. It was like, hey, this is kind of reminiscent to me. Because I did some track in high school a tiny bit. But my vehicle did. But yeah, I wanted to go with the two witnesses. I wanted to go back to Zechariah. To show you where, I'm not going to go through this verse for verse because I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it shows the evidence of the two witnesses and who they are by their capacity. And it says the Lord has been sore displeased with your fathers. Therefore, in other words, the ancestors at that time. This was the last book in the Old Testament, and they tried to put it together with some kind of a form of a order of time. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, turn ye unto me, let's see, I will turn to you. Okay, be not like your fathers, unto whom the former prophets have cried, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, turn ye not from your evil ways and from your evil doings, but they not hear nor hearken to me. Now, this is still the toddler lesson program, okay? So, where they couldn't get a lot of detail about the reality of the next level. So your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? But my words and my statutes, which I commanded my servants the prophets, did they take not hold of your fathers? And they returned and said, like as the Lord of hosts thought to do to us, according to our ways and according to our doings, and hath he dealt with us? This sounds like next level thinking to me. Upon the 24th day of the 11th month, which is the Mount Sabbath, in the second year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, and son of Berechiah, and son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees. In the bottom, and behind him were red horses, speckled and white. Now, horses is related to being human beings in this communication that is being depicted here. Myrtle trees and horses. So I haven't actually tried to figure out what that meant exactly, but the horses part, I feel like I understand. I don't know what the myrtle trees relate to. Uh, so then, let's see. And then the angel says, no, then he said, "What are these?" And then the angel said to him, "I will show you what these be." And the man that stood, among the myrtle trees answered and said, "These are they whom the Lord hath sent to walk to and fro through the earth." The Lord had sent these individuals. So you've got myrtle trees. Oh, so the trees are the members of the next level, the older members. There's two. I hadn't seen that before. That's another one of those little tiny evidences that there's more than one, if the word trees was rightly translated. It could be tree or trees. Myrtle tree or myrtle. Myrtle tree. Uncertain derivation. And it's a noun. They're saying it's a noun. And it's got the male on it, which I could go through, what that might mean, but I won't waste any time on that because it would just be a vague opinion. But I want to try to stick to this, and they answered the angel of the Lord and stood among the myrtle trees and said, "We have walked." These are they whom the Lord hath sent to walk to and fro through the earth. So basically the horses, the red, speckled, and white horses, were the three. Interesting that three is coming up again. Maybe those are the three groups of people that will be describing the souls, that they each have their strain of that they're attached to through their mammalian horses, their vehicles, and which Tino talked about it, having strains that all the students have or connected to of other humans that will relate to you all better than they will relate to other people that are students of Tiendo. You might find that in your travels and standing up for Tiendo happening. But that doesn't mean we treat anybody any differently, of course. Even though it's going to be hard to treat everybody the same because we all have things to overcome in regard to relationships of any kind. Platonic in the case of people that want to be in Tiendo's classroom to the best way that they can. I mean, not that there's something wrong with somebody who's not in that. They're just not ready for that stage, or they're in between being in that stage, or it's all got to go eventually. So we might as well know that if we want to continue in this direction. And to some degree, it happens kind of naturally. That it's not that difficult to give up, and then we can get continuously tested by that occasionally then, because the next level wants to keep on facing us with it so that we overcome that, because that's what the lower forces do to us. The next level allows them to do that so that we can build strength, because by dealing with it over and over again, we build strength, because it keeps on coming at us in different ways and catches us off guard. And this is with all our, well, I'm not saying all, but it can be with any number of characteristics, behaviors, and ways that we all, and thinking that we have. But red, speckled, and white. Well, red might be humans. I mean, Homo sapiens. Or of the Adamic type of vehicle. And then, as the strains changed, they put red first. So they all might be the same, on the same strain. One big human tree. That's the way I read it. And that they're all trying to make themselves white in the end. So this looks like it's talking about 3 grades in school, so to speak, in the graduation class. And speckled is on there. What makes it speckled is they have some white in them. And so here you got the people that never heard about Tiendo but are separating from the world in their own way. As potentially the red horses. And then the speckled horses are all the vehicles that with minds that recognize their older member as doe, but have weaknesses they're working on. That they can still graduate into next level membership, but if they don't overcome those weaknesses enough before they leave to build enough strength of mind, then that will determine whether they're saved on ice, so to speak, or whether they're given a next level vehicle that's a student model to where they would still have to come back and finish their overcoming, which I believe is talked about as a potential in Revelation 6 during the time of the 5th horse, which I believe right now we're in the time of the 4th, maybe the beginning of the 5th. Because I always had this feeling that this time it was going to be like in 4-year segments. If they really wanted unity, if the Bidens really wanted and company really wanted unity, they would form a partnership with the Trumps. And then they could be the government for everybody. And so you would have like the Communist Party has. They have a committee that's the rulers on everything. Right there. With their families and everything. Then you have the king, there wouldn't be any one king. I don't know if that's from Tiendo's mind or not. But they did have us say about that it might be good for the United States to have a president who is a business person had success in the business world to handle the United States like a business. And that was Ross Perot. And they were considering having us vote for Ross Perot. And we were, I don't remember if we were seeing him. I think we did maybe see him on TV. Or satellite feeds. And it just so happens that Trump was the first business person that came around, right? And maybe that's why, the things about him I didn't like, of course, many. I'm not saying he's the next level student, but there's things about him I do like. And I think he's genuine about a lot of things. And yeah, he's got a big ego. Yeah. Everybody that's up there has a big ego. Don't be mistaken by that. There's no, you can't do that task without so much self-confidence. And what you're doing actually is you're attracting to yourself the dead people and the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls that have supported and been presidents in the past and been, cabinet members in the past and been financiers in the past. And so you actually build an entourage of people, of discarnates that help you do things. Like help you be an eloquent speaker and help you really know how to tell, give people the impression you're saying a lot by giving them very little detail. or how to, wag the dog so that you're telling them what they want to hear. All those are like a skill set. And the art of deception, which is what politics is. It's the art of deception. And, wielding over one another to get what you want. And lying is just normal. Propaganda is just normal. Telling the people what they want to hear and what's best for them is normal. And what will keep them from revolting against you if you're the government, which brings up this problem that we're having. Well, let me get to the Zechariah. Finish that. So the angel then said to Zechariah, cry thou, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion, and with great jealousy. Right, because the next level requires our all to be their wife or husband, however you want to look at it. They're the partner in on next level spacecrafts that are like a Star Trek environment without the mammalian behavior, so no children running around, no propagation, no sexuality, no responsibilities to anybody but your older member and those that you're working with, to try to do the best job you can, to act as team members. And they're individuals for the first time, because we don't know that we've got a lot of different invisibles trying to get us to go in different ways. And that we've gotten the habit of going in those different ways. But we can challenge that by changing some of those ways. And some of those changes are hard to make. And I'm not saying that that's a practice. I mean, I don't know if that would be a practice Tiendo would approve of now or not. But they didn't teach in general that changing for the sake of change was of value. So I think the bottom line that of that might be that we ask the next level to help change us, and for the strength to do it, to make the changes, it can be part of that. And then you, by doing that consciously, you're opening your mind to whatever ways they want to help you have that. Those changes that are going to lead to more joy, like Kathy Southwestern was feeling. And so, go with it, fly with it, and that's wonderful. I mean, we all go through potential peaks and valleys in that regard. Like we get just a sense of clarity. That's what I was talking about before. I was like, pacing the floor, listening, to the radio all day of the right wing, and then watching all the different news channels on, through the internet stuff, and listening to the radio of the left wing as well. They call it that, left and right, but that's a bunch of hogwash at this point, except for the people that define themselves that way. But that's their business. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging it, but I know that those labels, for somebody that's feels disconnected from all that, don't apply anymore. Red might have some relationship to Republicans. People that come from the Christian right. There's a bunch of seekers in that group of people. So the more for the people that feel inclined to, not everybody's necessarily going to be inclined to, and it doesn't mean that you're greater or lesser if you're not inclined to it. How we serve is up to you, between you and talking to Doe, and asking for his help on how and when and where, each day of the week or whatever, each moment of the day, whatever it is that where you have the time and energy to do it. And of course, seeking their information and learning about everything, and coming to understand, and not be battling in your head with too much, which you'll do that. You might not even know that you're doing it until something happens and you say, wow, I was like really having trouble accepting that part. But now I feel like I can accept it. And so you can get into you're developing your mind muscle. Tia described it as a muscle. So it's getting stronger and stronger, and that makes it easier and easier to make changes. It's like you gather steam. It also makes it easier and easier to adjust to different things that are causing us problems, and maybe even have a broader overview of how to help somebody in our life, that might be having a problem with us, or us with them, and yet we need to relate to them for some reason, and we want to relate to them for some reason, to help them through their problems, or whatever, to help earn sticks, or to navigate the very difficult territory that we all have to navigate. If it's not difficult, I'm glad, if it's not difficult for you. It's not difficult for me a lot of times, but it is difficult most of the time. Because when you hear the propaganda, and how can you tell the propaganda? Well, it's always very generalized. They make everything, the big problems potential, into little problems. I still didn't get back to that Zechariah. I don't want to go where I was just going to go now. Okay, then he lifts up his eyes and he sees, I'm reading from Zechariah chapter. Oh, wait, I'm in the wrong chapter. Oh, what happened there? What are these? I was over in the right place before, I think. Wow, I was going through the wrong section. Okay, he says he was taken in, and the angel that talked with me came again and waked me as a man that is wakened out of his sleep. So as a man, it might be that he was taken on a journey while he was asleep, but he thought of himself as being awake. Could be that way that's described. And anyway, so and he said, "What seest thou?" And I said, "I have looked, and behold, a candlestick of all gold with a bowl upon the top of it, and it has and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps." Okay, then he says, "And the 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl, and the other side, left side of the bowl of this lampstand," right? Because there's a bowl on this thing. I guess where the light comes from, even though it's got 7 different arms coming out of it, I guess. Because the bowl is what holds the oil. Only has one bowl for all the different lights. So I answered and spake to each of those lights represents a young or old member of the next level. In this case, it's going to be a younger member of the next level, because there weren't 7 older members that came. And he was saying that there are 2 anyway, and there are 2 that are on the right side of the left side of the bowl. Okay. I still don't picture that well. Anyway, I don't need to right now. And then the angel talked with me and said to me, "Knowest what these be?" And I said, "No, my Lord." Then he answered and spake unto me, saying, "This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel." I think that was the king at the time in that area, saying, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts." In other words, do things my way. Don't use the might of the military to accomplish what you want. Nor by power, which will also be, twisting and turning and taking over people and torturing them to get information, and exercising your power over people and your willpower, and, making them pay you with food in order to not kill them or send them to fight against people. Anyway, but by my spirit, my mind, spirit and mind is the same word in Tiando's language, which I think is. Anyway, so who art they, O great mountain, shall become a plain, and thou shalt become a plain, and thou shalt bring forth the headstone with shoutings, crying grace, grace unto it. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, his hands shall also finish it. And thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts has sent me unto you. For thou hast despised the day of small things, for they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand Zerubbabel with the seven, and the eyes of the Lord which run to and fro through the whole earth. The eyes of the Lord, that's Tiando they're talking about there, the two. But not only them, but the souls that were coming back to be their crew, that are all running to and fro. In other words, back and forth across the Midwest, the western part of the country. That's what we did. We went from Dallas to California. We went from Texas to, Dallas, but we went from different parts of California, from North Texas and from South Texas over to, but we never went north of L.A., Anaheim, and while I was with them, unless we were traveling, spreading information, or some individuals had a task to go someplace that I didn't know about in between two periods of time doing meetings. So anyway, so then Zechariah says, then answered, I said to them, what are these two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick, upon the left side thereof? These two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and the left side of the candlestick. And I answered him again and said unto him, what be these two olive branches, which through the two golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? The branches, in other words, those are the elder students, the seven of them. It talks about them as the seven ones that blow the trumpets. And he answered to me and said, knowest thou not what these be? And I said, no, my Lord. And then Zechariah 4:14, which is what I wanted to get to, then said he, these are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Now, when you look up the word Christ, if you go down enough little translations, one of the translations will be anointed ones. Anointed one is a Christ, because that's somebody that has overcome the world, which Jesus said that he did, and that was required of the students when he came back, in order to leave with him, and not only leave with him, but be with him. Because they selected the vehicles. The students helped them select the vehicles, Tiando said. Their vehicles, your own vehicles. So we had a choice in these vehicles. And the vehicles were designed to be a match for what we needed to learn. I'm talking to everybody now. Same thing. It's not over. Anybody that tells you it's over is working for the opposite side. If it was meant to be over, Doe wouldn't have said there were three types that didn't even know about him, the one type of people that was separating from the world, because that separation is taking place like crazy now, right? I mean, they're even separating us by 6 or 10 feet. And how that can even be good for us. Because, but I don't, but it's wrong for them to do that. Because we don't have the choice. That's why it's wrong. From the next level's perspective. But we can make a positive out of it, is what I'm saying. And that's what T and Do taught, that the next level members were masters of making positives from negatives. And notice that these are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord, by their older member. And T and Do talked about communicating with their older member, T's older member. Because T was Do's older member, is Do's older member. But her name isn't T now, because T was the name of the vehicle. So if anybody tells you that T came back, they're not the real T, because T is not coming back. Not during this civilization. And Do is not either. But Jesus is coming back, it seems. But he won't be named Jesus. You won't know what his name is, I don't think. Because Do said he didn't know what his name was before he took the vehicle Do, and before he took the vehicle Jesus. But I suspect it was Michael. I'm pretty sure of that, even though Do didn't actually say it. But he did say that Revelation 12 starts with talking about T as the woman. And if you actually analyze all that, T is the sun and Do is the moon. And the moon is the footstool. And that makes me wonder if there is actually a base in the moon that the next level has. That's why when they struck it with a missile or something, it rang like a bell, they said. Because they were recording it, and they recorded sound coming from it. And there was evidence recently of what looks like a complex of like squarish buildings and roundish buildings. I mean, you could probably match it up with something that looks like it's got like an oil well on it, or one of those big like oil the gas tanks that are in New Jersey, those huge ones. All right, so let me go back to the chat room because I got through enough of that to respond to Kathy Southwestern's words in the chat room. So let's see. And then Jeff says, yeah, Kathy, how could Do be one if the two witnesses, one of the two witnesses, and the same spirit mind that was in Jesus? because the two witnesses are the vehicles that are taken now. And the same soul that was in Jesus is doing that task as well, coming back. That was in Jesus. Okay, then Harm Ben Newton says, thanks, Kathy. I don't feel it like loss. I don't feel it like loss. No, I know. No, I know he is there, and it's a beautiful feeling. Yeah, I know what you're saying. You can definitely have a sense of the ones that go over to the other side, as they say, of when they can be around us. And actually, when we're thinking about them, I think that a lot of times that is actually like sending them a message that we're thinking about them. If we had like a bond with somebody, that bond could be created very easily, I imagine. Kathy Southwestern then says, Jeff, I believe, that's the deal. After T left, Doe came to understand that he had also been the mind in Jesus. No, he knew it before then. But he didn't talk about it that way. And I even talked about it at one point, I think, as if it didn't matter whether he was or not. Maybe even in the Beyond Human tapes, he said something like that. And that T is his being Doe's father. Right. His older member. Heavenly Father. Which would have meant that T was the same soul that was in support of those 6 times, including the 6th time being Doe, the other 5 times when he was incarnate in a human vehicle. His older member was outside, wasn't physically present with him, also incarnate during those other times. That T was then working from like a spacecraft, even though he came down and was right next to him physically. And Moses touched him when he asked if he could see him, and he said, "No. If you look at me, you will die." In other words, the vehicle would actually literally die, I think, because of the power that would come through their eyes. And I felt the grinding inside my head when I would look at Doe in the eyes early on, and then that stopped after a while. I mean, a literal grinding feeling inside my head, it felt like, as if there was a bug in there chewing on something. I know that's a terrible thought, but I remember seeing that movie where the earwigs would go into the person's ear. Gosh, that was like a nightmarish movie that, plagued me for a long time. Kathy Southwestern says, it's in, I believe, the final exit videos. Okay. All right. That if you Kathy Southwell says, I could be very wrong about all this, but that is how I've understood it. My point with bringing that up, if in fact is Jesus and the second coming, then per Revelation, don't we have like 1,000 years before shit really hits the fan? I know I could be very wrong here. Well, that's a good point, but I got two things to say about that, for whatever it's worth. And one was that Doe used the 1,000-year part in Revelation as an example of something that wasn't accurate in the book of Revelation, that John wasn't capable of getting the correct picture about. And that had to do with the timing of that, when the 1,000 years took place. Not that it never took place, and that it took place before. So what they're depicting as the classroom after that 1,000 years, when Lucifer is released again, is talking about what Revelation 12 is talking about. Where the dragon is sent down with his angels to fight against Michael and his angels. And that they're in the wilderness and they're surrounded by the lower forces. And I hadn't seen it this way to this degree before, because I was under the impression when I wrote my book that 1,000 years was yet to come, because I hadn't watched that audio. I hadn't listened to that audio from 1994. That was a meeting that I wasn't in, even though I was in the classroom then. Where he said that about the book of Revelations. That's where he also said to learn about Scripture is a good thing, so that you can help other people that are thirsty for the truth. And it might be a battle sometimes. A lot of times it might be. Because people shouldn't lightly just believe whatever they're told, of course. They were taught to test the fruit. The fruit has to do with the behaviors and ways, and the way in which we do things, and the tolerance and the patience and the ability, the recognition that we could be wrong about the way we're interpreting something, and that we don't really want to impose on anybody, but if we want to keep on having a conversation, then it might, we might get enthusiastic about it. That's not a bad thing about that. I just had a conversation like that with a friend. However, with that said, that doesn't mean that the next level couldn't choose to do something like that with a certain segment of the population on Earth right now. Or have that for a period of time to where believers in Tiando are in a camp. And see, this is because when I saw that about the individuals, I guess I should go to that place in Scripture. Which is Revelation 20, I believe. Isn't it interesting that it's 20 and we're in the 20th year and this has been a whale of a year? I don't know if that's related to that. I mean, I've been talking about this for years, actually. So, um, no, not one. Dummy. Okay, Revelation 20. And I saw the angel came down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit and great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon and the old serpent, that old serpent, which the devil and Satan bound him for 1,000 years. Because let's say that happened prior to now, but well, let's say that's also well, see, that's not going to happen because he's then he casts him to the bottomless pit. In other words, he's forced to go inside the earth to shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. After that, he must be loosed a season. See, now we're not going to have these seasons now, but because it's a little season, so we don't. Well, Doe said that he felt like it was going to be used as a base for a little while, right? His feeling was, he wasn't sure about that, but that was his feeling, and that before it's used as a garden again. So whether they have humans still existing on it or not is irrelevant. However, to look at this and to be thinking in terms of what the future might bring for us, and whether we might want to be gathering together. Doe gave us the indication that the Southwest was the place to try to be to, but that if that wasn't the place to go to exit. Okay, so exiting didn't mean necessarily exiting the way that those that were ready for that kind of exit were ready for. By their own hands. It meant exiting in any way, because Doe gave us different ways that the exit might happen. So, which I can link to scriptures as well. So, in Revelation 6, during the 5th seal opening. And so anyway, but he's held back from deceiving us. Okay, so that sounds like it's like a heavenly body. So what if the next level decides that they want to make this into a heavenly body, and so they're going to preserve some of the humans that have vehicles that have become meek, kind, gentle, trying to, even if they don't feel like they are that much, they're working on it. You know what I mean? Humble a little bit. I could be wrong about this. I could be wrong about that. But this is my feeling about it. And being open to what the other person says, and really consider their feelings about things and what they say, and trying to get along with everybody, and even get along with the government, so that they don't do us in before our time, so that we can get as much lessons and help and serve the next level by standing up for them. So we don't want to really retreat into some place to where we don't have communication with the internet, because that's the primary way that we're spreading the word. And in person is really good too, because I've met people in person that I told about these live streams, and I think one of them the other day came to the live stream and said that he met me in a town that was nearby where I was doing some busking. Relatively nearby. I drive, to places hours. So, I'm just saying that because I don't want to be, I don't know. If I said what I said, it's just I should have just left it that way. I'm trying to make it because I wasn't that far away from that town. I think it's 45 minutes actually, or so. Which I shouldn't have said. But that's open. That's a big area. So, I mean, if I'm to meet anybody, I'm willing to meet people, but it's not necessary for anybody to meet me. When you have access to the T&O information and the other things related to it that this vehicle can offer, that I can offer through this vehicle, then I think the less attention on where I actually am physically in Vermont is unimportant. Unless you want to do me some harm, and then I hope that doesn't happen. But if that happens, it happens. But and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them. Judgment was given to them, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had. See, again, that's another indication that this was before the ones that were witness to Jesus. In other words, those souls that were in those vehicles that were the 70 or the 100 or the 500 or the 5,000 even. Who knows how many people actually were witnesses of Jesus' teachings to some degree during that 3 or so years that he was in that vehicle, present with them physically. So, but the rest of the dead lived not again until 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. And blessed is, holy is them that take part in the first resurrection. On such the second death have no power, and they shall be priests of God. Okay, and then when the 1,000 years expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Okay, so that took place. And shall go out to deceive the nations that are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom as the sand of the sea. The Caspian Sea is the area of Magog. And the Gog are the people of that area. Because the word "and" also means also, even, both. It might even be two different kinds of people. Maybe that's more likely what they're talking about. But that might relate to their names as well, to their vicinity. So some people think it's Russia and China. That May part actually does sound like, some of the Chinese dynasties. Manchurian, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom the sand of the sea. Wow! Think about that, because it kind of appears that the Democratic Party are aligned with the Chinese. for a lot of what they're doing. Fauci didn't want Trump to disconnect air flight between China after he when he banned it from China. He didn't agree with that. See, they want, and so maybe they're going to come up with the same kind of thing of having a social distance score or a social score that enables you to. I don't think they're going to have much time for all that though, and I don't think they're going to be able to organize it very well because there's going to be so much rebellion happening. And so, they can say all these things that they want us to do, but it doesn't mean people are going to do them. And they know that people haven't been doing them. These governors are restricting more strict laws. But see, the people aren't seeing a lot of people dying that weren't already on their deathbeds in some ways. Because the dying numbers, we don't know. Cities have people dying every day, all the time. Even hundreds. Like New York City, I think, has over 100 people that die every day. And they may be dying faster. Because that's the stage we're in. And so they see they're dying faster and hospitals are filling up. And so they're, it's not like they're wrong about that. I'm not trying to say they're not. But what the cause of death is the issue. And because the flu has escalated death since 2017, with 60,000 dying in 2018, attributed to that, and 50 million being infected. Worldwide, I think that number was. Or maybe not. Maybe that was the United States. I know the death number was the United States. So maybe I'm not remembering that correctly. But that was from the CDC's website. So they're not telling you when people are getting bacteria pneumonia and dying from that, because when they test for COVID, what they're testing against is a piece of the virus. And so, and that might also be the same piece of the virus that is the same thing as the common cold. And so many of us have that kind of virus in us, potentially. It's not whether you have the virus, it's how much of the virus you have, and whether it's producing symptoms is the only way that we know that we've got so much of the virus that's coming out of us that if we get any more of it, we're going to start having a runny nose, a sore throat. That's the way it works. And then our body heats up to make a fever to get rid of it. And then when you get rid of it, you end up having a cough because some of it goes into the lungs. And that's the pattern for a lot of people. And then that cough can end up becoming an infection from a virus that they're calling the pneumonia virus, which all this is a response to exosomes, which is the way that the viruses fight against one another. I don't know if they fight against bacteria. But I know there's different kinds of bacteria that void each other out, neutralize each other. There's alkaline and there's acid chemistry on the bacteria. And different parts of the body have different alkalinity as their pH. And when they get out of balance, and the blood has a different alkalinity in its pH. If they get out of balance, then they're less. And that's why the mucusless diet is really good, because it helps your blood get into balance. And then your white blood cells can fight against any of the diseases. Any diseases, potentially, can be fought against with a combination of seeking the help from Tiando's mind and adapting that to to the meditation that they gave us of imagining the light from the next level coming in through the top of our heads, through the pineal gland, and healing all the cells one by one. However, healing all the cells as it goes through our body. And that's healing of mind and body. Healing of anything that's infirm. Because even thinking can be a diseased thinking. If it leads to death, of the spirit, of the soul, because it no longer has the ability to change, because it's gone so far down to where in the next level mind that's in its genetic code is subdued. You don't even hear those thoughts that relate to the next level existing. And so people don't have even necessarily the capacity anymore. Well, I think everybody's got the capacity still. I could be wrong about that. But we certainly can't judge who does and who doesn't. So there's no sense trying. And that means that there's nobody that we wouldn't want to try to help in this regard if they were seeking it. And seeking it, we don't have to wait along for a lot. If somebody's having difficulty with anything, they could benefit by starting to think differently about what's going on and how that they are not their vehicle's thoughts unless they accept those thoughts. And we're the chooser. That's all we are. It's a big thing, though. Chooser of what thoughts to make our own is a huge task. And so when people start the censorship, they're choosing to try to brainwash somebody into not seeing something or seeing something differently, or seeing something specific that keeps them in allegiance with us. I say us, but I never do that. I don't want anybody to be having allegiance to me. That would be only the lower forces wants that kind of thing, because they justify it when they force it on you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting allegiance because you believe in something. Good. In that sense of allegiance, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like what Martin Luther King did, for instance, and Gandhi and other people. But forcing on some, not giving somebody the choice or conning them into it is what's happening with the media for the people. Now, the people want to be conned. I mean, they don't even think of it as conning because they have the same agenda. And it has to do with their survival of their vehicles. But see, if they think they're the vehicles, they don't know that they're not necessarily those vehicles. I mean, they're not those vehicles really in their minds, because their mind is separate from their vehicle, and when their vehicle dies, that mind will continue to exist for a period of time until the next level decides how to store that mind or dissolve it into another energy form. Maybe that stimulates the growth of a sun when you get some number that we can't pronounce of those little minds. Maybe they become like an energy form that could be like a gasoline, or compressed into something that gives you anti-gravity I'm just making stuff up now. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm saying this or that, this or that. Obviously not something that I would repeat if that came from T&Do's mind after saying that much. No, that's just the way my silly brain works a lot of times. But it was interesting when it said in Revelation 29, which is the end of this. And they went up to the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Talking about the lower forces, the Luciferians. Not the humans, because these are it could be humans that are, they're pawns. But yeah, that verse was interesting. Because what if if you took away the 1,000 years and you applied that to what this position in Scripture and this context of Scripture is kind of saying, that this might be relative to now, that the camp of the saints is camp. The word is an encampment, the camp of Israel in the desert, used for the city of Jerusalem. Inasmuch as was the Israelites, the barracks, an army in a line of battle. Camp of the saints could be the army in the line of battle. So that can be what we're doing right now for those that are standing up for T&O. But not only that, but fighting their own demons off so that they can make headway against in controlling their horse. What formerly encampment had been in the desert. A sacred congregation. In other words, it's talking about the gathering of people. It's the congregation, the church. The true church. The truest church. Not that there's not other churches, groups of individuals at the same time as this. And the beloved city is whatever area we are living in that's, where we're, surviving with our vehicles. And fire came down from the God out of the heavens and devoured them. Okay, that was, and the devil that deceiveth them was cast into the lake of fire. Wait a minute. Right, so this is depicting humans going against the camp of the saints, I believe, against the church. Now, they're doing that right now when when they teach that there is no next level. And, I mean, I'm just giving you what I believe is a general example because one of the things we kind of build an armor against the negativity. So the way that might translate is somebody might find fault with you that wasn't finding fault with you before, or on that issue, or is a little bit too serious about how much fault they're finding with you on something, or something that you do. Because their influences are aware that there's something about you that challenges them or troubles them or irritates them or but our vehicles don't necessarily know what that is that's causing somebody else to find fault with us. Now we can have the same pattern that we do to other people, of course, because that's a characteristic of the human kingdom. But as we accelerate the positive, we also are able to deal with more of the negative. But then we always get enough of the negative. The next level sees to it that we get enough of the negative so that we're challenged again to try to pull in their mind again, to try to get answers for things and help on things, and that becomes a struggle. And we ask the next level for help, and when we feel to, and then we look for the help and expect to see it, and then are willing to change when we see the things that we can do a little bit differently as a result of that in our minds and in our bodies. Then we have growth. And so, anyway, so let's say that can apply to now, the camp of the saints. When I first saw that while I was writing the book several years ago, I couldn't help but think about, well, those said to go to the Southwest, and they happened to go in 1995. They went to Manzano, near Manzano, New Mexico, and they bought an old Boy Scout camp. That's what it actually was that's what it was exactly used for. They had barracks on it, and it had, like a meeting room or whatever, a mess hall or something. It had different buildings on it. And what the classroom did when they were making the Earthship, in other words, they were making like a spacecraft there that had tires, stuffed with mud. And they were building like a lookout area, I think it was, and they talked about it as a fortress. And that's when Doe was talking about, well, maybe the way we will leave will be by the hands of the government, knowing that we're a cult, and that since we're a cult, we're all a danger to society. And so if they find out that we have rifles, they'll take us out. Maybe that's the way we're supposed to leave. Sort of like the David Koresh people, except that we're not going to stimulate that by shooting at them. Well, which I already talked about, what Doe said about that. And because we wouldn't shoot at anybody if we had a gun at that environment. But it would be good to learn to shoot a weapon if we decide that we want to have one. Jesus told his disciples to carry a sword, even though they taught that you shouldn't live by it. In other words, you're not going to kill somebody else so that you can live. So the sword serves another purpose. It could maybe be a deterrent that, somebody that could easily do you harm, because they have a sword, might not come against you with a literal sword, to fight you, because they know they might get killed. So just having something like that might be looked at as a deterrent. I've thought about getting something, but I haven't done it yet. I keep on, thinking about T&O and whether that's something that they think would be good for me to have. And I just don't get a sense of an affirmative to it. But I think it's an option. Wow, I've got to go take a break. End the live stream. So let me see what Kathy Southwestern said. My point with bringing that up, if in fact I read that already. Then Harm says, love the way you talk about T&O and how you explain some things. Really appreciate that. Thanks. Good night, Sawyer. Good night, Harm. Thank you for that. I'm glad it's working for you. And yeah, so I guess I went through a lot of stuff here, and I'm glad Kathy brought these things up, because it's like it takes a lot for us to get a lot of this in our heads in a way that makes sense to us, right? And so I've been working at it for a long time, so hopefully I can say some things that help others in that regard. So I'm glad to do it. Thank you very much for caring about T&O and wanting to be their students and caring about one another in that regard as well, because we do grow to love one another in a platonic kind of way. And so with that said, I think the chat room just moved again. Oh, it didn't. I don't know what that was. Well, concurrent viewers just came on, and so that means somebody just joined us, and I'm about to close down. But maybe they went away. All right, so good night, folks.